Hey all, let's get started. Hello, my name is Susan Oltman and I'm the Executive Director in the state of Washington. I hope you and your loved ones are healthy and safe, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our first ever Cycle for Air Zoom kickoff. This is also the first time we've gathered the Cycle for Air family together at one time, so we are really excited. The events representing tonight are Clean Air Challenge in Alaska, Reach the Beach, Oregon, and Reach the Beach, Washington. Although we can't be in the same room with you this year, we're grateful for this awesome technology that lets us connect face to face. So let's have a little bit of fun. We're going to review tonight's program, spending some time this evening highlighting some of the important work the American Lung Association is doing to defeat lung disease, from lung cancer to COPD and asthma, and now, unfortunately, COVID-19. But most of the time we'll be celebrating you, our Cycle for Air champions, sponsors, donors, and top fundraisers who make our work possible year after year. The participants on this call represent $1,266,000, our gross goal for all three events, to fund the mission of the American Lung Association. After some opening remarks and a special thank you, you'll hear from our National Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Albert Rizzo. He will speak about our comprehensive research program that's only possible because of your support and those who support you. We'll end our time together by dividing you into breakout groups by state for Q&A. Don't worry, you don't need to go anywhere. We'll automatically split you into separate rooms here on the Zoom meeting with the push of a button. I'd like to take a couple minutes to acknowledge a few folks with us tonight that I have the pleasure of working with. First of all, the incredibly talented team who worked tirelessly on this evening's program. Marge Stone King is the Executive Director in Alaska. Jenny Shappett is the Manager in Alaska. Wesley Jones is the Manager in Washington. Stephanie Roloff is the Coordinator in Washington. Julian Dillon is the Executive Director in Oregon, and Julia Baker is the Coordinator in Oregon. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Rizzo, our Chief Medical Officer, and also with us tonight is Allison Hickey, our National Executive Vice President for the Pacific West. This slide is showing you some of our local leadership board members that are participating in these three events. I'd like to acknowledge their leadership and thank you for the ongoing commitment to our mission to end lung disease. And now I'd like to turn it over to Wesley.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wesley from Reach the Beach, Washington. It's so great to see all of you. Before we jump into the program tonight, since Zoom might be new to some of us, we thought it'd be a good idea to go over some of the Zoom controls and meeting etiquette. First, let's quickly review the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Number 1, the mute and unmute button. This will mute and unmute your microphone, and we ask that you kindly keep yourself muted while others are presenting. Number 2, start and stop video. This turns your camera on and off. If you have virtual backgrounds enabled, you can click the button next to the little arrow next to the camera button there. Number 3, participants. See who's currently in the meeting and invite others. There are so many of us here tonight. Number 4, chat. Access the chat window to chat with participants and ask your questions later in the call. Number 5, reactions. Throughout the evening, we'll be asking you to give virtual rounds of applause and cheers. By clicking the reaction icons, you can react during a meeting by sending a thumbs up, clapping, and you can communicate without interrupting the meeting. Reactions will disappear after 5 seconds. If you would like to change your name as it appears on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, hover over the name and click Rename to change how it displays for other participants. Now let's go over some general etiquette to remember during the call. First, I want to let you know that we are recording this evening's presentation to share with our colleagues. If you have any questions post-event, please email rtbwa@lung.org. We will be sending unanswered questions and their answers and the recordings from tonight's call via email later this week. If you are registered for more than one Cycle for Air event, you can view the state-specific breakout room that you missed via those recordings too. We kindly, as a reminder, ask you to mute your microphone while other speakers are presenting. You can click on that microphone button at the bottom of your screen. While you're asking a question later in your state breakout room, please ensure that you are aware of your furry friends and/or loud neighbors, as that might be distracting to others on the call. And finally, if you experience any technical difficulties, please write to our development team member, Stephanie Roloff. She's super nice. She'll be in the chat box and ready to answer your questions. Let's get to the fun stuff. We're especially excited to see so many returning and new Reach the Beach Washington riders register this year. Washington's great fast and flat ride is one that is a perfect introductory century ride, great starter ride, and the perfect ride to hit your fastest PR. Ride with us and finish with the last 3 miles along the beautiful dunes of the Washington coast. We understand that Oregon and Alaska's rides are beautiful too, but you don't have to suffer through those massive elevation gates. Come ride with us on September 26th for Reach the Beach, Washington. It's beautiful and enjoyable. And now we'll go to Julia over in Oregon.
Hi and welcome. I'm Julia and I'm part of the development team in Oregon. We are so excited to celebrate the 30th anniversary Reach the Beach, Oregon on October 11th. Our route does provide a challenge for those looking to test themselves. We have a steep climb at the start of the 100-mile route that will make your calves burn. The payoff, while I might be a little biased, I am certain that we have better scenery because of our hills. Oregon is known for its beautiful wine country, stunning forests, and unforgettable beach views. You'll ride with us for an adventure. There is a reason Oregon is the only state in the country with official scenic bikeways. We also have one of the most bike-friendly cities in the country with close to 400 miles of bikeways in Portland alone. We are so fortunate to have an abundance of amazing rides in our backyard. While our event normally kicks off the cycling season in May, this year we are closing the cycling season with a beautiful fall ride from Portland to Pacific City. I'm going to pass it over to Julian to introduce my ride.
Hi, if you are concerned about large groups in this year of COVID-19, we are excited to introduce a new ride option that you can do anywhere and at any time in Washington, Oregon, or up there in Alaska, My Ride. If you have already registered, you don't need to change anything. Just make the decision to ride your chosen distance with a small family group or by yourself on a date of your choosing. This way you can keep fundraising and achieve your goal to ride and to fundraise for the American Lung Association. You can track your ride to our free Strava club and also cheer on your fellow riders and teammates. If you have yet to sign up and now want to register as a My Rider, select the virtual option during the registration process. We will be offering online experiences that you won't want to miss for our My Riders, and you will be eligible to receive all of the same great incentive gifts we offer to all our event riders. We'll even send you your own bib. Starved of riding this summer and don't want to wait another 6 to 12 weeks for Cycle for Air or Reach the Beach? Then My Ride is for you. And now I'll send you all the way up to Jeannie in Alaska to tell you about their Cycle for Air.
Wow. Clean Air Challenge trekkers ride in the shadow of Denali through some of the most beautiful scenery in our state. And, you know, Denali is one of the 7 highest peaks in the world, so we have plenty of hills. Don't worry, Oregon. Really, though, there isn't a bad place to ride a bike in Alaska, from Seward all the way up to the Dalton Highway. It's an amazing place to be. Sure, weather is unpredictable. You don't know what kind of wildlife you're going to ride up on. But when you are prepared for everything, and we highly suggest you will, the Alaska trekkers who are on the call here tonight will agree, the scenery is amazing and adventure is just waiting to be had. So come on up to Alaska, ride your bike. It's amazing. Julia, I believe we're going back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jenny. Now let's get a little bit of an idea of who's joining us on today's call. We're going to put out a couple polls. You'll click the answer when the poll pops up on your screen. So for our first question, where are riders coming from today? What trek is your home ride? Do we have more Oregon, Washington, or Alaskan riders here today? Oh, the results are coming in. One more second to click in your answer if you haven't already. All right, way to represent Oregon riders. So for our next question, how many years have you been riding in your home ride? Is this your first year, your 5th year, or more? Let's see how long you've been riding with us at your home ride. Okay, and one more. There we go. And the results are in. Well, welcome veterans and newbies alike. New riders, be sure to ask our longtime riders your questions. And then for my last question, what is your fundraising goal? This is a friendly reminder: if you are getting close or if you've surpassed your goal, you can always increase your goal through your participant center. There we go. I see a lot of potential champion fundraisers. Thank you so much for your continued support of the American Lung Association. I'm going to pass it on to Season now.
Thanks, Julia. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Albert Rizzo, Chief Medical Officer of the American Lung Association. Albert Rizzo is, as the Chief Medical Officer for the American Lung Association, is the organization's senior medical authority. Dr. Rizzo has long been a key medical advisor to the American Lung Association, a member of the Lung Cancer Expert Medical Advisory Panel, and a leading media spokesperson for the association. In his role as the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Rizzo plays a key role in multiple areas of our mission, including the American Lung Association's Lung Helpline, research, including the Airways Clinical Research Centers, and the Awards and Grants Program, as well as advocacy, communications, development, and health promotions. Dr. Rizzo is responsible for ensuring the American Lung Association is always using the best science and medicine to formulate and deliver on our mission. Additionally, Dr. Rizzo will help us drive lung health innovation, challenge the association to reach those in greatest need, and strengthen our relationships with professional medical and patient organizations. Dr. Rizzo has been a volunteer with the American Lung Association at the local, regional, and national level since 1984. In July 2011, he became chairman of the National Board of Directors of the American Lung Association and was honored in 2015 with the Will Ross Medal, the highest honor bestowed on a volunteer from the American Lung Association who has made a significant contribution to the prevention and control of lung disease. Dr. Rizzo is going to share some updates about our research program and made possible because of your support. Take it away, Dr. Rizzo.
Getting off mute will help.
Yeah, I was like,
thank you. But what I was saying, thanks for that great introduction. We could have saved a lot of time for my slides, less introduction. But I also want to thank everybody on the call. I mean, the work the American Lung Association has been doing for the last 115 plus years only gets done because of people like you who devote your volunteer time and raise money for the mission that we're going to talk about tonight. So thank you very much for your efforts. We all know that COVID-19 has changed the world for many of us, if not all of us. And we know right now that it is a respiratory disease. It starts out as a respiratory disease transmitted by respiratory droplets. It starts out with cough, shortness of breath, fever in many cases. We do know, however, that it's a different virus from many that we've dealt with before, leading to multiple organ involvement, leading to kidney disease, heart disease, vascular disease, and ultimately killing right now about 1% of the population that gets the complications. Next slide, please. We also know that many of the people that we've served over the years fall into what's considered the high-risk group for developing complications. Certainly, the older an individual is, the more at risk they are for complications. Lung disease, heart disease, renal disease, diabetes, and certainly cancer, whether it's cancer being treated or cancer itself, may increase the risk, as does obesity. So there's a lot of different things going on with this virus in the body. We also know that individuals who are needing to take immunosuppressant drugs, many times people have had transplants, whether it's lung transplants, kidney transplants, they have to be on immunosuppressants to survive the rejection process. Many people are on autoimmune therapy that includes psoriasis, biologics for asthma, rheumatoid arthritis. All those drugs that control inflammation also unfortunately put the individual at risk for developing complications because this disease leads to inflammation in the body, inflammation in the airways, the blood vessels, and inflammation on top of inflammation does not portend a good outcome. We also know that smoking is considered by the CDC as another risk factor because of the inflammation it causes in the airways, and similarly, vaping is considered to be the same type of risk factor. Next slide. You've heard a lot about masks the last week or two. We're probably not going to hear the end of it. This was a statement put out, I believe, last week or 10 days ago by 4 organizations led by the American Lung Association, pretty much convincing people that there's no clinical evidence that wearing a mask causes any detriment to your carbon dioxide or your oxygen levels. Many patients who have more serious disease, who are on supplemental oxygen, who are on nocturnal ventilation, people who retain CO2, These are patients who really should not be going out in the first place and should not be worrying about wearing a mask. They should be worried about being isolated and safe from people who could expose them to the virus. Next slide. And the main thing on this slide is that there are multiple options for people who say they can't be comfortable wearing masks. There's different styles. There's even face shields that make it more comfortable. Remember, all these masks are designed to do is keep your respiratory droplets from infecting others. They're not designed to protect you from inhaling the virus. The N95 mask should be reserved for the frontline workers who work in the intensive care units where aerosolization occurs and where the N95 is needed for those frontline workers. But other types of masks, anything is better than nothing to help keep you from spreading the virus from you, especially if you don't know you have the virus in you. Next slide. And this is an appropriate slide for a bike trek. We know now that health disparities are becoming very apparent during COVID-19. Equity means giving everybody what they need, not just giving everybody the same thing. So everybody using the same size bike is not going to be very helpful in a trek. Next slide. These are the numbers that show how the COVID-19 disease has made these disparities so obvious. Black population in Louisiana far exceeded the percent of that population as far as hospitalizations and deaths. The same thing in Chicago with regard to the Black population suffering more from coronavirus than the whites, even though they did not make up that much of the city's population, and on, Georgia, Wisconsin, and in New York City. Next slide. And the reasons for these health disparities are multiple. Most of them are boiled down to the social determinants of health. We feel that income inequality and food insecurity lead to individuals developing comorbidities such as hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. We also know there's cultural differences, mistrust issues, misinformation, and also the socioeconomic issues that lead to poor housing, closer quarters where you can't isolate, and people who need to work by using public transit. All this exposes them to more risk in developing the virus. Next slide. You've also heard a lot about vaccines lately. Fortunately, the 30,000 person study was just started this week from NIH and Moderna. We may, by the end of this year, have some effective vaccine. At least at that point, we'll know it at least works in a short term. We don't know how long a vaccine will be effective with regard to reinfection, whether it's going to last 3 months, 6 months, a year, or longer. It may be like the influenza vaccine that you need to repeat every year. We just don't know at this point in time. Next slide. But one of the big issues that the Lung Association has to face is that even when a vaccine is available, which may be as early as next spring, we know there's going to be a lot of individuals who do not want to get the coronavirus vaccine for a lot of the reasons listed there. Most vaccines have taken in the past 4 to 5 years to develop safely and effectively. When you do something in 6 to 9 months, it normally takes 4 to 5 years. People get worried that safety concerns are not taken seriously. Accelerated timelines may lead to faulty vaccines or dangerous vaccines. There's also the mistrust of the government these days. There's individual liberties. You can see that around the mask situation. So for a lot of reasons, the Lung Association has to work with others to convince individuals that getting the coronavirus when it's available will be safe and will help get herd immunity to a level where we can start to slowly get this virus under control. Next slide. And you can go to the next slide. Much of what the Lung Association has been doing over the last 115 years revolves around research, education, and advocacy, and we're doing all that now, and we're doing all that with the funds that you're helping to raise. We do have to pivot a little bit and emphasize what COVID-19 has done to us now, and also realize that this is not going to be the last emerging pathogen. So the COVID-19 Action Initiative was really designed to not only start fighting the current pandemic, but get ready for the next one. And we're going to do it with the 3 mission arms that you see here, along with making sure that we work with nonprofit and for-profit companies to get better prepared for the next pandemic. Next slide. Part of what we've been doing is trying to be the trusted champion, which we have been for many, many years, to try to give information when it's coming quick and come from different sources. There's a lot of misinformation and myths. We've held town hall meetings. We hold weekly webinars. We have updated our website on a regular basis to try to make sure we're giving accurate information. And our helpline has been answering a lot of calls from individuals. Next slide. We recently started the COVID-19 mask initiative, buy two, give two. Those two that you give will go to the underserved who cannot afford to buy masks and will help decrease the spread of the virus by way of improving mask wearing. Next slide. And as you know, we've been dealing with a large population of individuals with chronic lung disease, COPD, pulmonary fibrosis, asthma, cystic fibrosis. And unfortunately, we now think we're going to have a population of individuals suffering from post-COVID disease or chronic COVID disease based on damage that may have been caused to their lungs during that illness. Next slide. We also want to make sure that we continue to provide adequate information and accurate information to our healthcare workers, knowing that they're working hard at the front lines. We want to make sure that not only have the supplies they need, but also the information they need to perform excellently. Next slide. A big part of the American Lung Association for a lot of our mission has been advocacy around social determinants of health, making sure everybody has access to health care, making sure that testing when it's available is covered, and also making sure that we're ready for the next pandemic by helping convince the federal government to put the money where it needs to be for stockpiling supplies, PPE, ventilators, and also to make sure we have enough of a well-trained frontline force as well as a very good public health infrastructure to do the contact tracing that's been so sorely mismanaged these last 6 months. Next slide. Research is another key to our mission. Right now we have our ACRC network that has been around for 20 years, mainly dealing with airways disease such as COPD and asthma, but we're also changing some of those current research into adding COVID-19 issues so that we can follow how the COVID-19 may be affecting individuals who are currently in our studies. We also are making sure that our awards and grants programs continue to be well funded, not only for the respiratory diseases we've had in the past, but more importantly for coronavirus awards, and we'll talk more about that later. Next slide. As you may know, the American Lung Association is starting a lung health cohort study later this fall. This is a longitudinal study of 4,000 millennials aged 25 to 35 to see how their lung functions over the course of time and what may be some signs of developing lung disease. Because of COVID-19, we're adding the COVID-19 demographics to this as well, and we'll see whether or not COVID-19 makes a difference in the long run with regard to individuals' lung disease and the development of chronic lung disease. Next slide. This past April, we announced a new category of awards. Our CEO, Harold Wimmer, put aside $2 million to provide grants specifically to coronavirus initiatives. Over 200 proposals were submitted within 1 month. Typically, on a given year, we have about 150 proposals that come in for all other lung diseases. This was specifically around COVID-19 and a tremendous response. Currently, there's 50 to 60 of those research proposals are being reviewed by our scientists. And August 5th of next week, we'll go through those 50 to 60 and come up with 10 that will be given the $200,000 award. And that'll be announced at the end of August. Next slide. And lastly, we want to make sure that we are ready for the next pandemic. We know we can't do this alone. We want to make sure we work with other for-profits and nonprofits, work with pharmaceutical industry, governmental agencies to make sure we're ready with all the needs for the next pandemic. We know it's going to occur again, unfortunately. Next slide. And by doing all that, the main goal of everything we do at the Lung Association is to save lives, decrease the mortality and the complications of this virus, and make people have a healthier life. And I believe that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Rizzo.
Thank you.
As you would expect, I'm Marge Stonekin with the American Lung Association in Alaska. And as you would expect of the lung health champions working to end COVID-19, American Lung Association takes risk mitigation very seriously. So when we do meet in person for a Cycle for Air trek at Reach the Beach or Clean Air Challenge, we will have strict health and safety protocols and expectations of all of our participants and volunteers. We have used U.S. Cycling Association Return to Ride guidance as well as CDC's advice for large group events to develop our American Lung Association Cycle for Air, in-person Cycle for Air event guidelines. Each event will of course differ somewhat in how these guidelines are implemented, but in general, this is what you can expect. Health screenings will be required upon check-in by all trekkers, volunteers, and staff for in-person events. All of our Cycle for Air events offer virtual participation, and that is strongly advised for our at-risk riders in particular. And please stay home if you're at all unwell or sick or have been exposed to COVID-19. Face coverings will be required at all contact points, and what that means is start and finish areas, rest stops, food service areas, and transportation, including advising you to use it in your own transportation if you're traveling with others outside your family group. And we know that you'll be as happy to see each other as we will be to see you in person, and we need to stay healthy. So please use safe greetings such as elbow bumps, thumbs up, waves, or foot taps. So hand hygiene on a bike trek means that when you arrive at a rest stop or finish line, remove and pocket your cycling gloves, put on your mask because you'll be around others and close to them, and wash your hands before you do anything else. And there will be hand washing stations as well as hand sanitizer throughout your trek route. Starts and finishes will be managed to small groups spaced apart, and we advise family groups or small social bubbles. And please follow the cue marks on the ground to distance yourself from others while awaiting your turn to start or even finish, or to be served or check in wherever you need to wait in line. Please stay those 6 feet apart following those cue marks. And food service, routes, and finish parties will differ from previous events and, of course, by event. Next slide. So what about on the bike? So these tips are for your virtual training rides to stay safe in all of your riding, your training rides for in-person events, as well as your virtual rides or during the event itself. Follow new rules, and what that means is be aware of the state, local, and even national guidelines for where you are allowed to ride. The laws vary by state, the mandates vary by state, and even county by county. And some require masks and others don't. Social distancing, so on a bike, yes, even on a bike, even a larger social distance. So we know that when you're exercising, your droplets come out faster because your respiratory rate is faster, and so you need to maintain at least 10 feet of space between yourself and other riders and pedestrians. And so this means avoiding popular crowded trails, and it means not riding in pace lines or pelotons right now. And ride solo, but stay connected socially. Even with that spatial distance riding, it's still best to fly solo or with your immediate household group or small social bubble for the time being. So being prepared means making sure your tires are inflated and your bike is running smooth before heading out the door. Wearing your helmet, of course, and bringing your mask for trail congestion meetups, planned or unplanned. And planning ahead means making sure your toolkit is properly stocked and you have a pump so that you can take care of your own repairs along the trail without having to stop and ask others or stop at local businesses. And bringing plenty of water and snacks and maybe your hand sanitizer. Happy biking and have fun.
Thank you, Marge. Now, speaking of fun, it's time to have a little fun. We want to find out who knows their bike and their Lung Association trivia. So we have some questions here. Answer all these questions correctly, and we'll send the winners a 2020 COVID Ride commemorative bike guy sticker. First one is, when was the bicycle invented? Who knows that question? I didn't until I Googled this. If you said 1817, you were correct. 55% of you guys know your bike business. Question number 2. Let me get my little thing here. How many times a day does the average adult take a breath? How many times do we breathe? I also didn't know this until I looked at this. "21,000 times a day" is correct. That's a lot of breathing. A major tire company's namesake was a veterinarian who developed a pneumatic tire for his son's racing tricycle to replace the solid wooden wheel that was then in use. What was his name? If you answered Dunlop, you were correct. And a lot of our treks, people ride road bikes, but when was the first mountain bike introduced? Indeed, it was not until 1978. Good guess, you guys. And speaking of when were things introduced, what year was the American Lung Association founded? This is a tough one. I did know this one though. 1904, as Dr. Rizzer said, we have been working to combat lung diseases for 115 years. What is the most common lung disease? I think this one is surprising, but I know I have it. If you guessed asthma, you are correct. 26 million Americans is what is estimated suffers with asthma. And when were bicycles first invented, they weren't called bicycles. What were they called? If you said velocipedes, you were right. I'm so glad they changed that to bicycle. Going back to the Lung Association trivia, what disease was the Lung Association originally founded to fight? That is right. Tuberculosis is correct. I imagine a lot of those folks were feeling a lot of what we're feeling now, wondering what's going on and how do we fix it? Which part of the bicycle wasn't added until 1896? I personally find this part quite important to my bicycling. I hope you do too. It is the kickstand. I like my bicycle upright, even if I'm not on it. And in which country is it illegal for cyclists to lift their feet off the bike pedals while riding? And be careful if you're cycling there that you don't keep your feet off your pedals because you could get arrested. Oh, only 6% of you guessed that Mexico would be where you would get a ticket, and that is true. So thank you guys so much for playing. And now to talk about what brings us all here in the first place. We each have our own reasons why we commit to ride and raise money for the American Lung Association by participating in a Cycle for Air trek. Sometimes we ride to honor a loved one who has passed away from lung disease and giving purpose to our loss. Sometimes we ride to celebrate the victory of winning against lung health issues or to honor and cheer on loved ones struggling to breathe. Our stories resonate with others, often more deeply than you would guess. Through sharing, we create connections that we might not otherwise know. We inspire others to do good and share their stories. We offer wisdom through our experience that might help others in unexpected ways. You can find Why We Ride stories on your event's website, and we invite you to share your own on your own page and with the larger Cycle for Air community by emailing your event manager. And now I'd like to introduce Dan Case, a longtime friend of the American Lung Association, to share his story about why he rides.
Thank you, Jenny. I have about a 23-year history with the Lung Association. I was 23 years ago, I was the finance director for the American Lung Association in the state of Alaska. It was my first introduction into what we did as an organization. And I helped the staff at that point build what has become the Clean Air Challenge of today. There was a Clean Air Challenge back in those days, but we changed it around a bit. And I started my involvement with the ride 23 years ago. One of the things that they taught us when I was working at the Lung Association was a little bit of a line, which was when you can't breathe, nothing else matters. And that really sunk in for me. My family has had a long struggle with tobacco addiction. I've learned that lung cancer is an unpredictable killer with a long attention span. In 2013, I lost my Uncle Rob. Rob was a strong man that never let anything get the better of him until he got lung cancer. I knew that we would lose Rob the day I caught him at the top of a driveway at our family reunion, smoking a cigarette while he was being treated for lung cancer. Last year, my Uncle Kent was diagnosed with stage 1 to 2A lung cancer. Kent hasn't smoked a cigarette in over 15 years. He's healthy, in good shape, and all the rest of it. And he lost almost a half of one of his lungs to a stage 1 to 2A diagnosis. And then because of COVID constraints and lack of follow-up care, because they didn't want to bring people into the hospital, when he went in at about 9 months for what should have been an earlier check, they found a mass on his adrenal gland, and now he is struggling with stage 4 cancer. And it leaves our family praying each day that he can beat this. When you take a look at all of this, you can see that lung disease has had a significant impact on my family. Kent's fight will continue, and our family will pray that he'll beat this, which Rob could not. And it's always interesting to me because despite all of these reminders on a day in and day out basis of the evils of tobacco smoke and tobacco issues in our life, I still to this day struggle as a former smoker with the lure of tobacco. And so as a result of all of this, that is why I cycle for air.
Hi, I'm Julian Dillon, back again from Oregon. Thank you again, Dr. Rizzo, for your presentation. It is so important to hear trusted information about COVID-19. Wow. If we didn't know why supporting the American Lung Association is so vital, we do now. And thank you also, Dan, for sharing your story. We are all of us riding for Kent and for the memory of Rob. But most of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. So you've heard why we are asking for your support. Now I'm going to share with you how to fundraise with great success and have some fun. Do you know the #1 reason why people don't donate to a nonprofit or charity? You may think it is their economic situation or because they are involved with another cause, but no, it is because they are not asked. That is the reason. We all get asked a lot, and we all have lots on our plate during this pandemic. So the first question is, how do I make my ask stand out? Make it personal and make it bold. There are amazing tools in your participant center to help you succeed at fundraising. We provide lots of helpful how-to tip sheets, including how to log into your participant center and what to do if you can't remember your username or pass. And you will have the opportunity to ask questions about your fundraising in the upcoming breakouts. You each have your own personal web page, which you can manage through your participant center. Step 1, link your participant center to your social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and don't forget those folks you connect with through LinkedIn. Use the tools in your participant center to personalize your web page. Tell everyone why you are supporting the American Lung Association. You may have a personal story, or you may be fundraising for a loved one, a friend or colleague. Or you're supporting the American Lung Association because we address lung health issues such as asthma or teen tobacco use. Share why supporting the Lung Association is important to you on your webpage. You can easily upload a photograph or video to your webpage. With your personal story and a photo on your page, everyone will get why this cause is important to you and your webpage will stand out. Team captains, you can do the same thing in your team page. Put a photo of your team and tell us why your team is supporting the American Lung Association. Be bold. We require you to raise the event fundraising minimum, but we ask you to keep on fundraising. Set a really high fundraising goal and tell everyone about your goal. If you tell someone you're going to raise $1,000, you have a much better chance of raising $1,000. Same for your team goal. Be audacious. Set a giant goal. 5,000, heck, 10,000. And as Julia said earlier, when you get close to your goal, raise your goal. Always let people know you still have funds to raise. If $50 keeps the research lab running for an hour, think about how many hours you could support by raising $1,000. And here's the fun part. The more your fundraising increases, the more of our incredible incentive gifts you will be able to claim, including stylish cycling jerseys, shorts, and wind jackets. Have you checked out all of the must-have incentive gifts on your ride's website? Some of our events also offer exciting must-have team fundraising incentives, such as your name on an event t-shirt. Share all these incentive gifts with friends, family, and co-workers and ask them to register to ride with you. Share our Why Give flyer and remind them why supporting the American Lung Association is personally important to you and vital for all of us. So now you're ready to ask for donations. Send out emails to all your contacts. We have a how-to sheet showing you how to send emails from your participant center, or you can use your personal email. Here's another tip. Assuming someone will not be able to give and therefore not asking them is a common misstep. That person you thought you couldn't ask may also have a connection to lung health. They can always say no, and they'll be happy to hear you are supporting the Lung Association. And just like you did with your web page, make your ask personal. Hi, I'm writing to support the Lung Association's COVID-19 Action Initiative, and I've set a goal to raise $1,000. Funding research to find a vaccine so my kids can go back to school safely is important to me. Will you make a donation to help me reach my fundraising goal? And about that donation you just requested, ask for a specific amount, as someone who could give you $50 or $100 may only give you $20. Tell them $50 educates a teacher on the harms of vaping, but $100 helps 2 students actually stop vaping. Tell them your $1,000 goal supports 2 days of research to end COVID-19, and tell them you will have become a champion by raising $1,000. If you need help writing your emails, your participant center provides templates ready for you to use. All you have to do is select the template or copy and paste to your personal email. It's just that easy. Other ways to ask. Pick the phone up and ask in person. If there is a small family gathering, tell them about your ride and ask. Remember, you are the hero riding 100 miles to stop COVID-19. But also remember to social distance and wear masks at any gatherings. Follow up. Your first email may have gone into a spam folder, or your favorite cousin has forgotten to respond. They'll appreciate the reminder, and they'll know how important this is to you. Your social media is often viewed by more people than you could ever email in an entire weekend. So ask through social media. One of the truly fun things about fundraising through social media is folks from your past who you would never have thought of asking will make a donation. Ex-roommates, ex-colleagues, exes. I hear you thinking, oh, I'll never have time for a training ride if I have to do all these emails and phone calls and write to all of my exes to thank them for their generous donations. Well, go for that ride. Stop for a break. Get your phone out and using our Cycle for Air app, instantly check your most recent fundraising total and send out a few more donation asks. And then back on your bike for another 50 miles. You can upload the Cycle for Air app from app stores. It's fundraising on the go and it couldn't be easier. During this pandemic, we cannot gather for in-person fundraising events. But look at us now gathered here online. Set up your own team or individual fundraising party via Zoom. You can download Zoom for free and host a 45-minute event. Explain why you are riding and invite people to register and ride with you. Have some fun. Offer to sing a favorite song for the highest bidder. I tried it once and people donated a ton of money just to get me to stop singing. It never hurts to put a little fun into fundraising. One final key tip. Ask your employer if your company has a matching gift program and remind all your donors to do the same. You could double or in some cases treble your donation. Hassle your boss nicely. Hi, my favorite boss. Would you donate $100 to help provide a courage kit to a newly diagnosed lung cancer patient? If the company doubles, you've just provided courage kits to 2 cancer patients. You are asking for help building a future where our children and grandchildren breathe clean air. You are asking for help making life better for those impacted by asthma, COPD, exposure to radon, and other unhealthy environments. And you are asking for help guiding us out of this COVID-19 pandemic that has taken too many lives, sickened too many people, and shut down our economy. The way to this great and better future is by fundraising for the American Lung Association. So however you do it, please ask. Thank you. Thank you for the last 115 years of fundraising. And now I'm going to hand you over to Stephanie Roloff from our Washington office.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie. Thank you to all who sent in some great questions on the chat on the side of this presentation. We will try to answer a few of them now, but if we do not get to your questions at this time, you might have a chance to ask them again in the breakout sessions, especially if there's state-specific questions for your event. And we'll email everyone the answer to all of these questions in the next week following this call, along with a FAQ that we prepared for you all that should cover most of your questions. So a couple that have come in, some of the first couple were from Marius, asking if it is mandatory to wear a face mask, and just kind of, again, wanting to go over those details of when exactly during the event, at the start line, finish line. So I know you covered a bit of that, Marge, but if you wanted to maybe go over it again, because I know that's just a big concern for a lot of people.
So you can kind of relate it to the guidance you're getting from your state's chief medical officer or from Dr. Fauci. Anytime that you are within 6 feet of someone else, wear the face mask. And that's true at our events as well. And that's going to be true in all of our congregating areas, including the start, finish, and rest stops and any transportation with people outside of your family group or your small social bubble. On the bike, if you are choosing to ride closer than 10 feet apart, then we would advise that you wear the mask then as well.
Great, thank you. Another question came from Jennifer, asking if we need to, well, if riders need to carry a spare tube and pump with them on the ride, or will the event staff help if they get a flat? So
yes and yes. Yes and yes. Please carry a spare tube and a pump. You should always do that when you're cycling, and please do it on our events in person as well, though we do have volunteer mechanics that help along the route if there's something that you cannot handle.
Great, thank you. So thank you all again for your questions. Please feel free to ask more during your breakouts, or you can of course email any of your event staff and we'd be happy to help. Now I will pass it on to Allison.
Hi, everybody. So my cat climbed up on my shoulder while we were talking because she's my Zoom cat. She's saying hello. This is Onyx. She was very upset that we were showing so many dogs, by the way, on the presentation. So I just want to thank all of you for being here and spending some time with us this evening. And I've had the pleasure of attending all 3 of these events that you guys have heard about or participated in. And I can't say that I have a favorite because they all are so beautiful and so unique in their own ways. And I've met many of you. I see Patty Ginsburg and I see Mark Brasham, and just excited to see you guys be part of our virtual kickoff tonight. And it's my absolute pleasure to provide a thank you for all the support that you are all doing for us. You heard Dr. Rizzo, you know what our mission is around clean air and healthy lungs. And we need you now more than ever. We need you now to raise money for us more than ever. COVID-19 has created an additional 3 million lung disease patients, 3 million in our country that we need to serve and we need to be there for and we need to help. So these top fundraisers, I'd love to acknowledge them very quickly and say a big thank you. Can we get everybody do a reaction, round of applause. In Alaska, we have Steve Lindback, which is Patty's husband. Patty herself is here, and Rick Willis. I don't know if Rick is with us right now, but thank you, Rick. In Oregon, we have Kathy Landers, Dave Robertson, and Jerry Schroeder. Thank you, guys. In Washington, we have Mark Brasham. Hi, Mark. Michael McGee and Terry Larson. Thank you guys so much for being our top fundraisers. We're excited to have you do it again for us this year. We also want to acknowledge our top teams. And in Alaska, that's Team Molly and Patty. And I believe, Patty, you guys were one of the top teams nationwide, if I remember correctly. I think you were in the top 3 nationwide. So big kudos for you guys. Run Wild Fitness and BP Bike Team in Alaska, thank you. Our first, second, and third top teams. In Oregon, we have PGE Power Peddlers. PGE is also a very large sponsor of our event. We thank them for their sponsorship support as well as their team support. Mark's Madness and Icelandic Unicorn Cruisers, who has been raising money for some great reasons for many years for us as well. In Washington, we have Strong for John and Heroes for Higa. That is the Seattle Police Department team. We just want to say thank you to you guys for everything that you've done to raise money for us in the past. We have Tour de Friends, and we have On Your Left, OYL, as the top team there. So we just want to say thank you all for your top fundraisers. You guys together have raised $1.250 million for our research, education, and advocacy. To all of you who are well on your way to meeting your fundraising minimums and goals this year, keep going. COVID-19 should be a big inspiration for you to raise your funds this year so that we can not only end COVID-19, but also prevent it from ever happening again. We humbly thank you for everything that you've done. You make a big difference in the future of our lung health in America. You really do. And we couldn't do it without you. And speaking of our future, I'm delighted to share that we're developing a new Cycle for Air bike trek that will debut in the fall of 2021 in Northern California. The new trek will take in the amazing landscapes of the Greater Bay Area with distance choices for all levels of riders. And now it's time to zoom off to your state Zoom rooms to get your local details and get ready to ride.
Thank you, Allison. We're going to open up our state-specific breakout rooms now. You've been assigned to your primary ride. If you're registered for multiple Cycle for Air events, please remember we're recording this call so you can view your other state breakout rooms later this week to learn about those logistics. If you're in the wrong breakout room, please remember, or not sent to one, please remember to email rtbwa@lung.org and we'll get you in the right breakout room. Have a great ride.